intro. I think most of you are members of Odyssey, but for those who aren't, we are a new career platform that's connecting you directly with professionals for one-to-one conversations. And we do this through office hours. So we have professionals who have been through their career journey, who want to give back, want to make an impact, want to connect, and they post 30-minute slots of their time. And you can just go on our site and click to book, and you have a Zoom meeting set up, and we have a suggested agenda, and we help foster that relationship. And we're building a whole community around that office hour setup. So if you aren't a member yet, just head to join-odyssey.com and sign up, and we're happy to connect you with people from finance, tech, consulting, and all different type of backgrounds, all different type of roles. So today you're joining us for the Make the Perfect Resume workshop with Jeremy Mingo, who is an awesome person doing, not only is he a Microsoft data analyst, but he recently launched Rise Career Services, which is focusing on events just like this and helping people with their resume and land the job based on, what they have and really finding something that's fulfilling for them. So I'll hand it off to Jeremy for more of an introduction, but thanks everybody for being here. And one other note is there's some people who can't make it. So we're going to be recording this. And I just had to give a disclaimer. So if you're not comfortable with it being recorded, just so you know, thanks. And Jeremy, take it away.
Okay, great. Good morning or good afternoon for you all. I'm on PST time. I'm based out in Seattle now. One of the wonderful perks of working at Microsoft, I had to leave New York City to head out west. But yeah, so thank you all for being here. My name is Jeremy Mingo. Yep. Hopefully everyone can see my screen now. All right, cool. I see Brian nodding, so we're in a good place. What you see here is just kind of my face, and top right is my hometown, Akron, Ohio, and the bottom right is, of course, New York City. And we're just going to kind of walk through my story first, my career journey, and kind of kick off the different paths that people can take, kind of what inspired me, how I reached where I am today, which, as Brian noted, I'm a data analyst at Microsoft, which, to be honest, when I was your age, I never imagined being in this position. Never thought it was possible. To be honest, even in college, I did not even know what coding was. I didn't know what Python was. I was in a very different place and headspace. And as I kind of walk through this story, you kind of see how and why I was there. And then why I started to, be inspired to create things like Rise Career Development, which is really focused on helping people see their true potential, understanding how to create a resume, how to speak and tell your story, and tell your story with confidence. That's kind of one of the big things I really tell my clients is tell your story with confidence and see the hidden gems in your skills. So as we kind of progress through this, I really wanted to kick it off by if people in the chat, in the meeting, could just drop jobs and titles in the chat that they envision or they think of when they hear tech, working in tech. What are some of the titles you think of? And even if it's aspirational, some roles that you hope to have yourself. So let me. So let's see, data science, software engineer, product manager, data analyst. Thanks, Brian. So yeah, these are all roles in there. Scrum master. That's that's interesting one. That definitely is a thing. So yeah, but really what this is about is one, just understanding that there are a million different roles and titles in tech. And then one big thing is that data analyst, data scientist can mean something completely different depending on the team, the company, even the software engineer. It's just really about really digging deep and connecting with people and understanding what the role means and how it can really vary across different industries. And one big thing too, I see a lot of, obviously tech are kind of coding and data heavy roles, but there are a lot of opportunities in tech that don't necessarily deal with data. Even like as a product manager or a product marketing manager, you're working with these tech teams constantly, but you're really your whole job could be about how to market it, how to tell a story about a device or product. I mean, I work with our Windows team constantly trying to find new ways to enhance our operating system. So finding new ways to get people to play video games on Windows or with Microsoft, or getting Xbox Game Pass, or working with people to figure out how we can get people to buy new Surface devices. So there's sales related roles. Just really trying to help you guys realize that working in tech is not just being a master coder. So just really keeping an open mind to what's there. And then one final question, are there any coders in here? Whether it's early stage, if you guys could just drop some languages that you guys are familiar with. I'd love to see if someone's way ahead of where I was at that point in time in college. Okay, love to see Python. That's my bread and butter. That's my heart. Python is really what got me started into coding and really got me lost. I see CSS, HTML, JavaScript. It's nice. C. Okay. Yeah, there's some in Java. Java's a tough one as well. So seems like you guys have a firm understanding, or at least some interest in how to get started and know some languages at least. So for me, I was strictly CSS and HTML in college. But okay, we're gonna drive in. So hopefully no one's hungry, no one's sleepy. I know it's afternoon lunchtime for you guys, so hopefully everybody is okay. So a little bit about me, originally from Akron, Ohio. So I'm a diehard Ohio State, Cleveland Browns, Cavaliers fan. And of course, LeBron, he's from my hometown. And then while in high school, I was super focused on, naturally sports like football and track, but also on education. Because for me, I knew, even if I got hurt, I would always have my mind and I wanted to, have that option and that flexibility. And I knew, coming from my background specifically, I knew without a scholarship or some form of financial aid, college would not be an option for me. So that really is kind of what drove me throughout my entire high school career. And luckily, I performed well enough in both football as an all-state player and in the classroom as well to have the opportunity to leave Akron and attend Columbia University. And really here, this is what you see here as Columbia's campus. Are there any New Yorkers in here? Any NYU students, any Columbia students, or just people from the city of New York? For me, it was a big change coming from Midwest Ohio to New York City. And really what you see here is the campus. That's Butler Library. That's the heart of campus. And then I kind of put the Columbia subway station stop as a joke because we always joke at Columbia that they lie to you during recruiting. And we say, Columbia is a school that just happens to be in New York. You are too broke, you're too busy, and you can never really leave campus. And also fake IDs don't work at the best clubs in New York. It's kind of hard. And then also the drinks are $20. So I don't know how you're going to survive. So we always joke that that's kind of like the lie that you hear when you talk about going to Columbia. But at Columbia, I majored in psychology. I was always interested in human cognition and the way people think and why we think the way we do. I don't know if anyone's seen the movie Sixth Sense. At a young age, I wanted to be a psychiatrist, and then that movie kind of scared me away for a second. But human cognition has always been a passion of mine, something I'm interested in. But one thing I quickly realized at Columbia, coming from my background, my family was middle to lower class from a financial standpoint. And most of my colleagues were, as you would expect, private school, wealthy background. I was at school with princes and duchesses and things like that. But I quickly realized that I didn't have the connections that everyone else had. So I really had to take the opportunity at Columbia to spend countless hours in what is called CCE, our career education center, where you get to work with career coaches. And they help you make resumes. They help you learn how to tell your story. This was me, freshman, sophomore year, junior, senior year, every year at Columbia, I was in that office. And I took that time at Columbia to explore internships. I was in sports marketing. I worked in fashion. I worked working with startups to develop patents, things like that. So I was always exploring careers because I wanted to figure out what was best for me. I thought finance was the life for me. And I quickly realized that I didn't want to spend 100 hours a week at a desk. I went to Bank of America's office, everything, saw the whole program, and I was just like, this isn't the life for me. And I really wanted to take what I learned in the classroom and apply it to real life. So marketing to me was the idea of, and the perfect place for me to apply what I learned in the classroom to a real life situation in the workspace. You know, you're trying to get people to buy things. Why do people click on anything on the internet? Who even clicks on ads these days? That's something I ask myself all the time now. After my internships, I really pictured myself getting a job in marketing right after college in New York City, working at a big agency and working with some of the biggest brands in the world. But what I quickly realized was that marketing doesn't pay, and New York is expensive. And I didn't have the background or ability to reach out for external support. So I actually took that time to explore new careers, because once I quickly found out that marketing didn't pay, I had to find a job before graduation. So very quickly, I was like, how do I get a job? And I ended up in software SaaS sales. So SaaS is software as a service. And the role really focused on cold calling and emailing people. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with sales, but you're calling people who don't know you. You're emailing people who don't know you every day. And you're trying to tell them a story about why they should buy your product, why they should listen and even care what you have to say. But what sales really quickly taught me was that if you aren't able to build a connection with anyone, you won't be successful. And I learned that very early on in my sales career. I mean, I'm calling CMOs, I'm calling directors of marketing, I'm calling heads of product to try and convince them that my product is the best for them and I can help them. It was a social media management platform company. So trying to help them understand that they need to use us to manage all of their social media accounts like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And the majority of the time, those calls went something like this. So it was tough, but I ended up being very successful in sales. And over time, though, even though it was fun to really, you know, if you get someone on the line in that 5 to 10 seconds and they're interested and they say they want to talk and they want to buy something, it's really exciting, but it really just wasn't my passion. It wasn't for me. And luckily I had the opportunity to leave sales and join Ellie Tahari, which is a mid to high end fashion company. And this opportunity came through internships. I interned at a fashion startup where I was doing everything from managing our Facebook advertising campaigns. I was doing Photoshop on products. I was doing silly things like talking to our CMO and saying, hey, I think we should make this ring shinier. So I would go on Photoshop and like airbrush a ring. But it was just good experience. I did everything. I customized emails with HTML, CSS. I handled our email marketing campaigns. I did a lot of work there. And he ended up moving over to a larger company in LA Tahari and wanted to bring me along. And it was kind of devil wears Prada. Everybody wore black. Everybody was really mean. It was a really crazy environment to be in. I don't know if you can't tell. I know my hair isn't cut because I'm in Seattle. I'm trying not to go to a barber too much, but I am not a fashionista. I am not with the times. And so working at a fashion company, all my friends thought it was hilarious. They couldn't believe it, but I would do things. I would go to photo shoots. I would go to Fashion Week in New York. We would sit and watch the runway, sit on the runway. It was really different. It was an exciting time because I was doing e-commerce and marketing, what I love to do. It was just in a different vertical. I never knew that was an option. So my internship showed me that. And even though, as I said before, I wasn't the trendiest person, but I was really successful and I had the opportunity to go there and learn things about SEO. Really my first interaction with data on the job. When you're handling hundreds of thousands of dollars in advertising spend each month, you have to get it right. So, and it was a lot of pressure at that point in time. As I said, they weren't the nicest people. I mean, even like castings for models, they would be really mean. So it was just really high pressure. But I had the opportunity to learn a lot. And so that was my first foray into data. And I really started to see that as a marketer, you're crunching all these numbers, figuring out where to spend money, what products to push. But then you're going to an engineering team and asking them for help to help forecast how you do on performance, where you should allocate more funds and things like that. So for me, it was an opportunity to say, hey, I want to take the next step in my career with data and learn how to code so that I don't have to rely on engineering and marketing teams to help me make campaigns perform better. So that's when I really started getting into data and analysis. I started teaching myself how to code. Really a big motivating factor for me in coding was gaming. I spent countless hours, at least 2 to 3, being honest, like 4 hours a night playing video games. And so when I went back and checked how much time I was logging on video games, I could be doing something else. And so finally I said, I'm gonna learn how to code. So I looked on SQL Zoo, I looked on Code Academy, I looked on Lynda, which is now LinkedIn Learning. And hopefully some of you have LinkedIn Learning for free. We'll talk about that later as students. But that's where I learned how to code Python. I would spend a mandatory 2 to 3 hours a night before I touched my Xbox and said, I need to learn and pin down this Python language. I need to learn how to do statistical modeling. Once again, I'm a psychology major, so no math. We had at Columbia something called statistical reasoning. So it was math for psychologists. So that was kind of how I jumped into modeling. And really for me, it was about learning how to do these things on my own. And then once I had the opportunity to join into ad tech as a campaign specialist, ad operations, I started applying what I learned at home on a computer to my role. I would go to my boss and say, hey, I could crunch these numbers for the campaign. We don't need to go to the engineering team and wait 2 weeks for them to get back to us. The first time he was unsure. And then after a while it was rolling. I became the data person on my team. And then after that, I started, I had the opportunity to join a company called Ground Truth, which was location-based advertising, where if you walk by a McDonald's, we serve you an ad. So our whole goal was to drive visits to businesses. And so I started building out models to help predict how many visits we could drive to a business. And that was just a pet project I learned on the side at home and then brought it to my role. And after time, it just, after it was successful, people placed confidence in me. Now I'm working with sales teams in client meetings and calls, telling them what we can do for their business. And that was, me as a regular campaign manager. And that's when I really started thinking about going even deeper into coding and looking for new roles that kind of aligned. Because at this point in time, I was a technical account manager, I was a campaign manager, but I was just doing things that a data analyst was doing, but I didn't know it at the time. So then I started looking at roles and I said, hey, I've been doing this for a while. So then I started I started interviewing, I started applying to jobs and telling my story, telling them how, yes, I am a psychology major and I didn't start coding until after college. But what I do have and what students in college don't have are people with their master's degrees in statistics or computer science. They don't have on-the-job training. And that's what I have. I applied everything in real scenarios. And that was enough to convince them to give me an opportunity. So I actually started taking that time I joined a company called Integral Ad Science, where I was working as a business analyst. And there, I took it even further. I started using Python to do automation tasks. So I was able to synthesize 20 different channels of revenue and provide insights that they never had before. And that was just all through pet projects, learning how to do new things at home and then taking it to work. I would do things like, even like for technical interviews, I would take new approaches because I myself did not learn formally. I was able to, even in meetings, a big thing you'll learn in interviews, especially technical interviews, is that not everyone knows the language you know. So you may be in an interview and someone may be a SQL wizard and you say, hey, I think this could be done a lot better in Python. And they'll say, I don't know Python. Can you walk me through it? So for me, as someone who didn't learn in the classroom, it was for me, it was like, okay, it was like I was reteaching myself. So it's just really being able to communicate your skills across languages. I wouldn't get so drilled down and learning everything there is to know about a language. Learn the concepts and learn the basic approaches, because that's what's really going to be flexible. When you get in these technical interviews, there are going to be a lot of wonky little things that they have you do. But if you have a good foundation, you can apply even basic principles to a task that may seem daunting at first, but if you can break it down piecemeal by using this basic steps and fundamentals, and you're able to explain it back to someone, that's really what it's going to be that's going to help you land a job. Because sometimes it's not about getting the right answer. It's about, is your reasoning sound? Does it make sense? Do I understand it, even if I don't know the language? And that's kind of a big piece of about technical interviews. And that's something I understood. I spoke with other data analysts, data scientists, and that was something I really learned, was that it's about how you tell your story, how you connect your processes to how they think, and then making them confident and being confident in how you explain the work. So after time at Integral Ad Science as a business analyst, I caught the attention of Microsoft. Microsoft wanted to bring me in and become a data analyst, but they were kind of skeptical of my background. Once again, as a psychology major, I did not have the background that they're used to for people in this role. It was a lengthy 8-hour interview process, but it was actually pretty interesting because someone stopped me mid-interview and said, "Hey, we don't see, your background's really weird. How did you get into coding? We don't see people like you. How do I know you can do this job?" So it's just more, and I took that time to explain how my background in sales, my background in marketing, and even advertising allowed me to bring a new approach to the role. There's a thing, even at Microsoft now, people say all the time is don't drink the Kool-Aid. There's people who get bogged down in a certain way of thinking. And so for me, it's just about helping people see how my unique background can bring a new perspective and refresh the business. Things grow stale, ideas grow stale. And if you can bring a new approach to something, that's kind of where your value is. It's not just so much in your technical skills, but how you approach it and how you think through things, because people have been in these jobs and roles for 10 to 15 years, 20 years sometimes. And they actually get bogged down in this is how we do things. So I think a big thing is actually understanding why you do the things the way you do them, and then being able to explain it to others. I think no matter how good you are, if you can't explain to someone who doesn't know the language and you can't walk them through your process, your work isn't worth anything. It's like building out the best forecasting models, but you can't explain how you did it, why you did it the way you did, and then explaining what happened. What are the results? Was your model even accurate? So I think that's a big thing to think about as you guys kind of prepare for applying for technical jobs. Really, how you prep for casework from a technical interview. I think that's going to be really really key in how you kind of set yourself apart. Is one, your storytelling, the confidence in which you tell your story, and your firm understanding of the language. I think even something like, so if we're talking like a technical interview and you're doing something, say a logistic regression model or classification model for that matter, and someone says, why did you choose to do logistic regression instead of random forest, or just, tell me about decision boundaries and things like that. That's kind of, once again, that's going to speak to preferences. There are a lot of preferences in coding and data science and how you approach work. I think that's something you need to realize early on if you want to be successful, because that's once again going to be about your ability to explain why you did something the way you did it, because everyone has a different process. So you really need to figure out your process, what works best for you, and then your understanding of that process. So, but yeah, after time, I was able to join Microsoft, and I quickly realized that, everyone's path is unique. And so this is kind of my explanation of my career timeline. So the way it kind of went for me is, obviously, as I said before, I needed a job fresh out of college. And that was a business development SaaS sales rep. I needed it. There was no option. I wanted to work in marketing. That's what I was passionate about. That's where my internships were. But it wasn't an option. I just couldn't afford to live in New York on a $35K agency job. I don't know how other people did it. Their parents helped, something happened, but it wasn't happening for me. So yeah, I did software sales. And then I had the opportunity to join Ellie Tahari as a marketing associate. And that was where I thought I was making it. I was in marketing, I was in e-commerce, I was doing something I thought I wanted to do. And then I started falling more in love with data. And that's when I first got my taste of ad tech and became an ad ops campaign manager at Yieldbot, which was a startup. If anyone wants to talk about startups, startup life can be really exciting, really fast-paced and fun. but also it can crash and burn. And I was at Yobot, I mean, classic startup story. Came in Monday, told to go, the whole company was told to go home Tuesday. By 2 p.m. on Monday, by Tuesday morning, 50% of us are gone. So it's just, but yeah, I mean, startups are fun, but that was my first taste in ad tech. Then I moved over, I started getting deeper into coding, became a business analyst at IAS. And then I had the opportunity to join Microsoft as a data analyst once I got more comfortable and sound in my skills and approach when it came to coding and just business reasoning. And then, now it's kind of about, that was like my bubble bowl moment, right? Just, 8 hours of interviews trying to prove myself to this team that I could do the work. And now I'm just trying to figure out what's next. But in the meantime, as I said before, there are a lot of resources involved. So as far as how to get into coding, how to expand your skills and challenge yourself, lynda.com to me is the holy grail. It's the best learning tool I've ever used. I swear by it. It's now LinkedIn Learning. W3 Schools, which is free. Everyone knows about W3 Schools. Code Academy, some Columbia alumni. A great tool as well. And if you're ever looking for inspiration, how I built this, once again, no one's path is the same. It's messy. It can get pretty crazy. And then Stack Overflow. If anyone's coded before, I'm sure you all have been on Stack Overflow. Let me tell you something. Stack Overflow does not go away. You will use it whether you are on your first year of the job or your 10th year on the job. And SQL Zoo is just really good because it's free, but it also has some pretty challenging questions. And it's like its own course, and you answer questions. There's like 100 questions, maybe even more. And they keep increasing in difficulty as you progress through the program. But yeah, I mean, like, this is what got me to where I am today in applying this in real work scenarios. So for those of you who don't have internships that are data related or tech related, I encourage you to create pet projects. For me, that is how I really separate myself. One, I did them at home and then I brought them into work. But just even being able to create my own pet projects and speak to them in interviews and connect with interviewers on the work, that is kind of what helped separate me, because as I said before, I did not have the formal background or education, but I was able to tell the story of how I learned and applied those things in the classroom, in work scenarios outside of the classroom. So I think that's very important, even if you are, a data science or computer science major, really doing things outside of the classroom. Even if it's a passion project, if there's some type of forecasting model you want to build, whether it's a REMA model or some type of logistic or classification or unsupervised learning model, if you really want to get into that, do something fun first to at least make it interesting, because that's gonna keep you wanting to learn more. But yeah, even today now, I work every day with people who have their PhDs in data science. One of my coworkers, who me and him, we partner and write things together. We've done peer reviews. I'm reviewing his code, and he has a PhD and he writes his own modules. But I'm just some sort of psychology major who learned how to code at like 21, 22. So I think it's all about perspective and your story. So, and that's kind of where I am today. As Brian said, I also founded Rise Career Development, which is a career coaching, career development, resume help type of company. Really, this kind of started as my opportunity to kind of give back and kind of help people out, because it started off by when I was at Columbia. Even then, I was helping friends back home. I was helping family. I would do resume reviews. I would do edits. I would help them prep for interviews. I would do mock interviews with friends and family, because I think a big issue a lot of people have is that self-doubt. It's real. It's when you're applying for your dream job, you think you don't have what it takes, and you think you're missing because you don't hit everything that they have in the job description. And I think that's where a lot of things fall short, is that people think that if they don't have the skills that are exactly in the job description, that they can't apply, that they aren't a fit. But there are a lot of skills that transfer. Job descriptions don't tell the whole story. And also, the interviewer hasn't even got a chance to meet you. They don't know you. They can't connect with you. So it's about making that resume stand out enough to where you pique their interest. And even if you don't meet everything that they have in that job description, do you have something interesting on there that they've never seen before? Or do they think that this person isn't a fit 100%, but I think they may be able to learn on the job? So I think that's a big issue that a lot of people face. And that's why I started this, is I want an opportunity to connect with others and help them see their stories. I mean, even yesterday, I was working with a client and talking to someone who had all the skills, and I asked them what their stretch dream job was. And I was like, it's not even a stretch. It's just about how you tell your story and reworking your resume to really highlight who you are. And I think that's where people get caught up. Your resume should be a highlight tape about you. And then when you actually walk through it, you add the fluff, you add the story, and you add the passion, and you say it with confidence. I think that's a big thing. A lot of times interviewers can see impressive resumes. I've been an interviewer many times where you see an impressive interview and you're just like, I got to talk to this guy. And you talk to them and it doesn't connect. The resume doesn't connect with the person. And it doesn't sound like they've done everything in their resume, or even if they've done it, they can't explain it. And they may have the technical skills, but they can't speak to anybody. And that's kind of a big thing you see in the data and tech industry, is a lot of people who can't speak, they can't connect with others. So then that lowers the value of their work. I work with data scientists now, as I said before, who have their PhDs, who can't speak to people. They know numbers, they know algorithms, but they can't highlight their work. They can't communicate it to others. And I think that's where people fall short, is that they get so caught up in the work and numbers and trying to get these skills, but they don't realize that having the skills is only the first step. And even having someone with partial skills may be better fit for the role than someone who matches it exactly, because they're still learning and showing the capacity to learn, but they aren't pushing it forward. They're not helping others and bringing others along in their work. They can't do that and spread it across the company and add real value. So I think that's the big reason why I started Rise. And this is kind of, as you kind of see here, this is our homepage. But even as college students, if you guys, want, help, or just a session just to talk and understand, what your resume is lacking, where your story kind of falls flat. That's what I'm here for. And yeah, there's free sessions for Odyssey students. If you want to offer, if you want to do full sessions, I'm offering half off for all Odyssey members. So this is just an opportunity for people to kind of connect, understand what career coaching even is, and sit down and talk and really see how their skills transition over to their dream jobs. So that's kind of me running on and talking. Are there any kind of questions that anyone wanted to ask?
If anybody has a question, they can either raise their hand in the chat, or they can just drop it in the chat box. But we did have a couple of questions come in beforehand. I can go through a couple of those. Let me just pull them up. One of the questions we got a couple of is how do you know what's relevant experience to put on the resume? And then how do you highlight that if it's not, maybe in the timeline order, it's not the most recent, but it's what you want to highlight.
So once again, this is kind of speaking back to the story and how you tell it. So if you have experience, it's still valuable no matter when it occurred. It's just about how you kind of weave it in. So for me, if there are roles and things I haven't done in years that I have on my resume, and the way I kind of communicate that is that I speak to what I did when I was in that role, and then also it's kind of like the process and the progression as in which you speak in your resume and walk through it. So for me, it would be about, I always tailor each bullet so that it's connecting to the actual role, even loosely. So I look at I kind of look at them as vague bullets on job descriptions and kind of see how I can tweak each bullet in my resume to touch on the skills I think are perceived that they're looking for. Even if it's a while back, I try and tailor everything to at least loosely connect. So even if it's not the skill directly, but they're looking for someone who's managed a team or someone who's built any type of model. So whether it's, say you're looking for a job that's looking for specifically unsupervised learning, and you say, okay, I don't know that, but I know how to build supervised learning, logistic regression models or something like that. Then it's like, okay, I can write that and show that. I may not have what they want exactly, but I have some type of some work experience that correlates to that.
And how do you know what is relevant? Like,
Uh,
what are you drawing on for that?
Really, like as I said, I try and look for like kind of context clues within the job description and kind of see what I think they're hinting at. Are they looking for someone who can handle multiple tasks at once? Can you work under pressure? Can you uh, crunch numbers, or at least can you present your findings back to people? Because that's like that's like the whole purpose of like technical interviews is it's not so much always the right answer. It's can you speak, and can you connect with us and help us see that, give us the confidence that you can do the job. So it's kind of like, so there's some nuance, right, to figuring out what they want, and it's kind of, as I say, using context clues and kind of getting a feel for the general theme of the role. And also too, always job descriptions kind of have like that 1 or 2 paragraphs above them before they get into the bullets, and kind of get a sense and feel for what they're looking for.
Another question we had was, how do you prepare for technical screenings for a data analyst position?
Yeah, so a big thing once again is I always kind of go back to my whatever language I'm comfortable with. For me, that's Python, and try and dig back deep into the fundamentals, because I think so. Like for instance, a pretty common thing in technical interviews for Python are kind of like building your own functions, and so that's kind of like a fundamental I go back and look at, right? So how do I do specific types of loops, while loops or things like that, and trying to refresh my memory, because there are times like you get so lost in doing what you're doing in your day to day that you forget how to do basic simple things, because that's really what it's going to be about. They may not ask you to do something that involves like a specific module that you may not know about, but it's going to be about creating functions. Maybe they love to do things that are like table index type of works and things like that. But I think a big thing is, yeah, really going back to the fundamentals, because if you have a good base, you can apply that, as I said before earlier, piecemeal or step by step, and that's going to get you there. At least when you walk through it, right, it's going to be simple enough to where they say, oh, you missed it a little bit here, but each step of the way you kind of helped me see where you were headed.
That makes sense. And again, anybody else, if anybody on here has questions, feel free to ask, raise your hand, or drop it in the chat. But we have more I'm going through. Somebody asked how to address employment gaps in my resume, and then also, should I list my GPA in my resume?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're fresh out of college, I'm a little removed now, and my GPA wasn't that impressive. So yeah, if you're in college, fresh out of college, and your GPA is above a 3.5, I would definitely recommend putting it on there. That's kind of the standard. And then also too, as far as an employment gap, if we're referring to lack of skills coming out of college and on the job experience, then that once again is where we get into kind of the pet projects, right? And when you put your technical skills in your resume, speaking to what you have done outside of the work environment, I think that's a big thing, because I mean, it's a constant thing, right? You'll see an entry level position looking for someone with 3 to 4 years of experience, and you're like, but it's entry level and I'm fresh out of college. So I think that's once again about just really marketing your skills section, what you learned, what you can do, and also if you can, try and explore internships. But yeah, if there's a gap as far as actual real life work experience, I would always try and put that in the technical skills, just to show that you know how to do the work, or you're familiar with the work, and you can cover that in an interview. But yeah, put in the skill section. If we're talking about an actual real gap in experience, as far as, let's say you're out of college for a year or two, and maybe you worked 1 year and then took a year off, that's all about the story, right? So whatever that reason may be, it's about how you communicate it and convince and say it with confidence as well. Like I have I'll talk to clients all the time who are scared to say why they even left the company or why they didn't work for a while. And what I tell them is, it can be taking time for yourself, uh, taking time to learn a new skill so that you can transition across the industries. All of that is okay to say. Just say it with confidence. I think that's the biggest thing, because they want to hear you, interviewers want to hear you say things with confidence, because that allows them to be comfortable. As you kind of saw from my career path, I had a lot of different jobs. And I've only been out of school for 6 years. So I think I have 6 jobs since college, 6 or 7 jobs. And I've been in interviews where people have asked, are you going to be here next year? Or are you going to leave? And that's something you have to, as I said before, say it with confidence and put them at ease that they can trust that you'll be there or do the work that you'll do.
I think even your whole journey is a good example of how highlighting like the pet projects and not necessarily a linear path that a lot of people think is required to get to a position like you're in, and just kind of highlighting those skills and how it doesn't necessarily need to be this straight shot. So I think it's a great example of it.
Yeah. And I think too, even if you are on the path of majoring in computer science, good for you. You're ahead of the curve. But once again, what's really going to separate you, because I mean, for these roles, you see thousands of resumes being dumped in, is, your ability to communicate. Everybody has the technical skills. I'm a big believer that having the technical skills is only the first step. It's just really about how you tell your story that separates you, because we're going to see, like, even for when we have openings on my team, we like a job posting can go up for a couple minutes and you'll have thousands of people who have dumped their resume in there. But then you interview people and they can't talk. So that's kind of like the big piece, is even if you get the skills, be confident and learn why you're doing what you're doing.
Great. We've just passed the 45-minute mark. I guess if anybody else doesn't have any questions, we can start wrapping it up. It looks like we're quiet. So if anybody's interested in speaking more with Jeremy, like he said, he has sessions. He has some free sessions for Odyssey members. Upcoming this Friday, he's available for a few slots. I posted them in the chat. I'll send a follow-up email for everybody that was on this event. And just want to really thank Jeremy for being on here and kind of walking us through his own journey and offering some resume advice. But if you have any more questions that you want to do one-on-one, just make sure you book one of those slots and reach out to him. But yeah, so Jeremy, just wanted to really thank you for walking us through this. I think it was awesome hearing about your whole nonlinear path and really like how you found something that was fulfilling for you and not necessarily what you had expected back in college. So I think that was really awesome.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you guys for attending. I mean, it's always great to connect with others and kind of tell my story. Sometimes I think people get caught up in thinking that this is the way and there's a path, but there's never a set path, and it's all about your story and kind of what separates you. So, I encourage everybody to explore the different resources there are, push yourself with different aspects of the language, whatever language that may be, and have confidence in yourself. And, you don't need validation from the outside. As long as you bring that energy, you're going to get it. So that's it.
Awesome. Yeah, one other point I want to make is it's funny how you were talking about how you wound up in fashion and all of your friends said they were laughing, like they would never expect it. But I think it's a good point to kind of just explore different potential paths. And if you're on Odyssey, just start reaching out to people where you might not think that's necessarily what you're destined to do, but you find it interesting, and just have those conversations. And you'll never learn more about that potential path if you don't at least have a conversation about it. And the only cost you is 30 minutes of your time, right? And it could impact the rest of your life. So just, I think it's a good, valuable takeaway is just how you can kind of search for maybe less obvious routes that you might have. So
yeah,
awesome.
I think that's great. Yeah. Because I never thought I'd work in fashion. I never thought I'd be coding every day. So yeah, but now here I am. I get in a couple hours of coding every day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for all the participants, and hope you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.